say regarding X, social media, and how doxing has been a very big part of, just a reason why X has to have some sort of enforcement policy with, addresses and all that. So I'm going, Nick, he has a hand up here. He's been through a ton of stuff because of X not enforcing TOS. So I want to hear what he has to say. So, Nick, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to join you. Good to be amongst the living. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and had a good holiday and everything. Um, so, I guess I'll just comment on what's been going on today and what's been going on the past week. I'd like to say on the record, of course, that I did not vote for Trump, of course. And in particular, I was highly critical of the little tech Silicon Valley coalition, which poured money into his campaign to get him elected. And the reason why, to put it succinctly, is that they are not ideologically aligned with America first, with American nationalism. And people can disagree. Obviously, Elon, Vivek, David Sachs, I'm sure Adrian, obviously a lot of people, there's clearly a disagreement, and you can feel however you want about it. And this issue I'm talking about in particular is the issue of legal immigration. Regardless of the volume of the immigration, regardless of the details, there's a clear ideological dispute between the tech oligarchs, and I think that's plainly what you can call them because of their wealth and the influence of their particular companies. Obviously, a car company is far more important and influential than any other company. Communications company is far more politically important than Home Depot or something like that. So, given the stature and the power of a true oligarch like Elon Musk and his cronies, so I think it's fair to call them those things. They clearly are ideologically not aligned with the Trump movement. Trump, from the very beginning, from 2016, represented something like nativism. And that's sometimes used as a pejorative term. At the minimum, it represented immigration restriction. This is why Ann Coulter was one of his biggest supporters from the beginning. And it's important to say that because Ann Coulter recently said, she interviewed Vivek, she said she would not vote for Vivek based on his race. She also has been outspoken about this particular issue and the issue of the green cards, which is, of course, related. I'm talking about opening up the H-1B visa caps, as well as Trump's pledge to open up these student visas for foreign students that graduate from a university here. And so people like Musk, Vivek, David Sachs, etc.
So wait, hang on a second. Are you saying that Trump promised that these things would be opened up so that more people could in fact come in legally?
In June.
That would then therefore conflict with Laura Loomer because she said that, of course, the promise in 2016 was to do the inverse of that, but then the promise of 2024, which of course, got him elected, I believe that's a bunch of stuff that's important,
is
the inverse of exactly that.
No.
Basically makes her even more of an idiot.
Let's get the facts straight. In 2016, Trump actually, because I studied this issue, and this is one of the reasons I did not vote for Trump in 24, but I did vote for him in 16. In 2016, he waffled on the H-1B issue in particular throughout the primary and even a little bit into the general. I believe it was around March or April 2016. So that still actually would have been in the middle of the primary. That is when he made his final position known on the issue and said he would actually work to reduce the number of H-1B visas. And then when he got in office, and this is all reported on Center for Immigration Studies, they don't even like me. Mark Krikorian runs it. He's not a fan of mine at all. And I wouldn't even call him the furthest right restrictionist. He got in a big debate with Jason Richwine about this 20 years ago. But Mark Krikorian from CIS, Center for Immigration Studies, he wrote about this extensively then and now. In the first term, Trump signed, I believe it was over 400 executive orders trying to reduce the number of work visas, including H-1Bs, and it was unsuccessful. The cap was met every year. There's an annual cap of, I believe it's 85,000. He met that cap every year, did not reduce it. He tried to, And he ran on doing that. So he ran in 16, not only on reducing illegal immigration or eliminating it by building a border wall, but also on reducing legal immigration. 2024, he changed his tune, and it was at a very precise moment. In March of 2024, it was Jacob Hellberg, who is another one of the tech oligarchs. He's married to Keith Rabois. He used to work at Google, I believe. He was the first of these tech moguls to give the maximum contribution to the Trump Joint Fundraising Committee. He maxed out at, I think, just over $800,000 in March. He was the first one. And then over those next few months, the other tech people bought in. Now, according to the press, this was J.D. Vance. Vance, who is, of course, a protege of Peter Thiel from the PayPal Mafia, founder of the Founders Fund. He's, I think, a partner in Y Combinator. J.D. Vance, the protege of Thiel, was the bridge between Trump and tech. That's one of the reasons he was made vice president, because Trump needed money. In order to win the general, he needed funds. And that's why he considered Burgum, who had oil money. He had a commitment. I forget the promise, but he was committing a certain amount of money if he got the vice presidency. Rubio was in consideration and Vance was in consideration. And part of the reason for that is because Vance brought in the tech money. In June of 2024, David Sachs held a fundraiser at his home in Los Angeles for Trump with the tech people, and Vance took credit for it.
It was in San Francisco, not Los Angeles.
I think it was LA, but maybe you're right.
No, it was San Francisco because I had friends who were there.
Okay, well, it was LA, but whatever. Maybe San Francisco.
Go on, Nicholas.
Regardless, a week later, Trump goes on the All In podcast, which is co-hosted by David Sachs. And they said to him, we got him to agree to this. This is Sachs and the other hosts on All In. They said, we got him to agree to this at that fundraiser. And they were going to host actually the podcast at the fundraiser. They said they wanted to record it there at the fundraiser, but they did it later. So when Trump came on the podcast, that's when he said for the first time, we should staple green cards to the diplomas of every foreign student, every degree program from 2 years all the way up to like a PhD program. He said everybody should get green cards. And if you've heard that before, that's a very old position. Mitt Romney has said that. Joe Biden has said that. I believe Hillary Clinton has said that. Charlie Kirk has said that. It's quote unquote stapling the green cards to diplomas. It's an old phrase. It's an old policy. And he said it because they told him to. And of course, that came with the money. They all contributed to his campaign. And the reason that they want the legal immigration is very simple. And it's not like some big deception. It's not even that complicated. Musk and Sachs and the others, Sean McGuire from Sequoia, they're invested in tech companies. Tech companies need cheap labor. They need cheap, skilled labor. And in particular, the rumor is that Jacob Hellberg, who is, again, the first of the tech people to max out, Hellberg had convinced Trump that in order to be competitive with China, he needed to go all in on artificial intelligence. That requires more engineers. That requires more of these skilled immigrants. It also requires a great deal of energy because the data centers and the AI are a huge power suck. It's a huge electricity and energy suck. That is what is starting to shape this new Trumpism from 2024. And the tension is between the tech people that say, in order for America to be competitive, to reduce the debt, to fight China, to expand AI, we need the cheap labor. And the Trump supporters from 16, people like Posobiec, who I don't even really like, and like the Bannon acolytes and others, including even people like myself, I'm not a Bannon acolyte, but I'm an old school Trump supporter, we're saying this is totally contrary to the spirit of the original MAGA movement. And that's why we don't really care so much about the details, the quantity, whatever. The point is we should make it easier for Americans to get the jobs rather than the Indians or the Chinese or whomever. Also, the other issue, it's not even about the economy. It's about the fact that in the past 4 years, we had 10 million illegal immigrants. So immigration, legal or illegal, on net has not slowed down since Trump won in 2016 with the mandate of restricting immigration. On the contrary, it has only increased. for the last 10 years. Trump won in 16 with the mandate to restrict immigration. It has gone up on net for the last 10 years. Legal and illegal have remained persistently high. So the idea that, I mean, he's not even in office yet. He hasn't even been inaugurated. Congress hasn't been seated. The idea that we're already talking about expediting and expanding the number of immigrants into the country, it's a huge slap in the face. It's a big problem, and it shows this ideological tension in the middle of it. And the thing is, I told people, it's not about me, but I told people the time for this debate was during the election. And the reason for that is because Trump needs the money, but during the election, he also needs the votes. And this was the idea behind Groyper Ward 2. I said if we force the issue of immigration and foreign policy, specifically with the Middle Eastern conflagration, I said if we force those issues, then Trump has to choose essentially between the base and the money. And maybe even the money says, if we want you to win and, liberalize regulations on self-driving or AI, maybe we got to bite the bullet and let Trump take a more hardline stance and make a promise to the base about restricting immigration. The problem is that now that he's won the election, the voters have no leverage. And this is why they're impotently screaming out and saying, midterms, we'll primary them in the midterms. In 2036, we're going to stay home. And it's like, they always say that, they never do it. After the election, when they're butthurt, they say that we'll primary you in the midterms. Then the midterms arrive and they say, hold the line, hold your nose and vote. Everyone has to vote because the Democrats are far worse. And I'm just saying, people, and to Adrian's point, I actually agree with Adrian. People can't be butthurt about what they got. No one was lying. Elon, Sachs, Trump, these people were all very upfront about what they wanted. And what they said then was, they alluded to West Bank annexation when they said Israel should be bigger. They said we're stapling green cards to diplomas. They said we need the people. We need the people for AI, and we're going to bring them in. Like people are all surprised now. They're saying, what? I can't believe, Elon is not a nationalist. Elon has always been, and again, like it, love it, don't like it, Elon has always been basically a right-leaning liberal. He's liberal on social issues. He's not a Christian. Maybe he's an atheist or agnostic or something. I'm sure Adrian knows, he's the expert. He's in favor of law and order, and he wants to shut down illegal immigration, but he's always been pro-legal immigration. He's an immigrant himself. He said he's aspirationally Jewish, so he's not critical of Zionism or Israel. I would argue he's probably better on foreign policy than he is on immigration. He doesn't want the wars to continue. That being said, he is a defense contractor, which people forget. And I guess the big takeaway is to realize politics is interest-based. You cannot be naive. And people were being lied to during the election. When Trump said staple green cards to diplomas, people said that was a, quote, throwaway remark that was made, quote, off the cuff. That was not the case. He reiterated it several times during the election. It was not off the cuff. It was not something that he just farted out. That was deliberate and intentional. And the reason Elon put $300 million, $277 million into the Trump campaign, biggest individual donor in 4 cycles, is because he believed Trump would secure his interests. Now, of course, we're all ideological. We're primarily motivated by interest. And people were being told, no, you don't get it. This is what winning looks like. When these tech oligarchs, who are in no way conservative, who are in no way nationalistic or right wing, when those people were showing up and pouring in money and swearing obeisance to Trump, people didn't even look at it twice because they said, well, this is what winning looks like. We won the argument. Mark Zuckerberg started working out and became based. That's what these fucktards, forgive my language, were saying. They were saying Mark Zuckerberg went to a style consultant, got a new haircut and a new outfit. They saw him on a podcast and said, whoa, this guy's been slonking raw eggs and working out. I guess that means he's based. I guess that means he shares our opinion on traditional architecture. It's like, no, he's just like in the last administration. He is deftly navigating a tense political climate. In the first term, Zuckerberg worked with Trump. It is well documented. Zuckerberg pretended to be on Trump's side so that he could avoid any kind of regulatory enforcement or other things. He's doing the same thing now, just like Bezos, just yes, like Musk, like Little Tech, Sean McGuire, the rest of them. And I said, you could search through my tweets. I said, wow, a lot of epiphanies this year. Musk, McGuire, David Sachs. I mean, Sachs and Musk were on Ron DeSantis's announcement last year. Now they're big Trump supporters. I said, wow, they must have really had some epiphany. No, they didn't have an epiphany. Elon made a play to become influential in politics because his companies are the jurisdiction of the federal government. He's been getting attention from regulatory agencies. Biden was coming after him for not hiring enough refugees or whatever. So Musk said, what am I getting pushed around for? I'm worth $300 billion. I should determine the president. So he he bought Trump at his dip when Trump was getting charged and indicted and they were trying to throw him off the ballot. They bought the dip. They realized he'd be the Republican nominee. They held their nose and they went behind him. They never became conservatives. They never became ideologically aligned. And here's the problem. Some people are now reluctantly admitting that and saying, well, it was important that we got Trump in office. We knew that going in. It's like, well, a lot of people were lied to. I tried to warn them. I was attacked for it. People were lied to. They thought they were getting something else. They really did think Elon and RFK were bringing back like Creed and like grunge or whatever. Like the Gen X fucking trash was saying like, oh, we're bringing back Nickelback and like Coldplay. Like, no, they think they're just going to like run the government like everybody does. But anyway, now they're saying, well, we had to get Trump in office. And, now we're part of this coalition. And now tech is going to have their say and we're going to have their say. And it's like, you and what army? Elon put 300 million in. You're a fucking Twitter account. By the way, Elon runs Twitter. So now people are starting to see, they said, well, we'll push Trump. We're going to pressure Trump after he wins. It's like, first of all, with what leverage? They say Twitter accounts. Okay. Twitter accounts or X accounts on what platform? Owned by who? Owned by Elon. So your master plan was to pressure Trump by tapping that screen. Go ahead, guys, tap that screen. Keep tapping that screen until we get to 10,000 likes. You thought you were going to tap the screen to pressure Trump, except one problem. Elon owns the platform. So now people are getting their check marks taken and they're giving a pretextual reason and saying, oh, it's spam, it's racism. I find that dubious at best. Maybe you believe that. But now the check marks are being removed, which means people are being de-amplified and it's being manipulated. They're manipulating the conversation. And Elon retweeted today or reposted Trump saying in June, staple the green cards to the diplomas. And that's a reminder, hey, this is what we got. This is the deal. I put in 277. I bought the platform for you. I made Trump win, and now Trump's going to deliver. And if you're against it, well, there goes your check mark. And people like Mike Cernovich are saying, well, Elon's the king of Twitter, and you kneel when you see the king, and you grab his thing and all that. It's like, okay, but that's not really, I think, what people signed up for. That's why I never supported it, because I fucking told you so. I knew it was going to happen. And, we tried to stop it, but nobody wanted to help. I did Groyper War too. Everybody just made fun of me. Everybody said, oh, well, you're a Democrat plant. Oh, well, you just don't understand. You don't want to win. You're the eternal dissident. And you don't want to let that go. You just want to be oppositional and contrarian all the time. It's like, no, you just look at, hey, politics is what it is, guys. They tell on themselves. They love Carl Schmitt. And Carl Schmitt says the essence of politics is the friend-enemy distinction. They're telling you guys. And guess what? They're not our friends. They may be giving money to the Republican candidate. Ideological allies, it does not make them. And so nobody should be surprised that Elon is not like a anti-Zionist, white nationalist, whatever people projected onto him. It was never there. It was not there. And now people are shocked, and they really shouldn't be. Now I'm out here now, like I was then, opposing it and giving the argument saying, look, I mean, for me, I don't think we should increase the H-1Bs is I don't think we should increase immigration. If you want to increase H-1Bs, you need to offset that with no illegal immigration or mass deportations. Like, we need to get to net zero immigration, where there's frankly, there should be more people leaving than coming in, even if that's mass deportations with illegals, or at the minimum net zero. And I think that's for cultural reasons, identity reasons. I would argue it, probably is more efficient for the economy to bring in the cheaper labor. But then again, we're a nation, not an economy. That's my argument. I'm saying that now. I've been saying that for 10 years. I was saying it during the election. Other people were too. Jared Taylor said the same thing. And, people love him, people hate me. Well, I mean, he said the exact same thing. This wasn't a win for white Americans. It wasn't a win for immigration restrictionists. It was a win for this sort of populism, which has gone Frankenstein. And now it's just become like weird conspiracy shit. Like, now people are celebrating Trump won because they're going to get rid of food coloring, get rid of food dye or something. It's like, we want to build a border wall. I don't care if there's like red 40 in the M&Ms, So, but this is what populism has kind of been manipulated into by, I think, very sophisticated elites. And I think Elon is one of them. And I don't think that's necessary. You can't even necessarily call it sinister, because they were very open about it. There's not some big deception here. The deception was promulgated by the Trump shills, who told you this was going to be like a TikTok edit. It's not a TikTok edit. Trump is 80 years old. He's tired. And these young tech people, he fucking owes them, and they're going to be running circles around him. And he hired them all. So now they're in. They let in a dragon. They kicked out the fox, and they let in a fucking dragon into the White House to, bring in the H-1Bs and, expand into the West Bank and all this other stuff. So, I try to warn people. Now people are listening. People didn't listen in the summer. Everybody wanted the vibes and everything. Now Brat isn't looking so bad, is it? Now Brat is like, now we're all doing the Apple dance, I guess you could say. But so anyways, I don't want to keep rambling, but that's kind of the long and short of it. It is disturbing that if this is true, that Elon is stripping everybody of the check marks and the features, this is a tremendous chilling effect. And it effectively is the same thing that we accused Twitter of being 10 years ago. Like, Trump won in 2016. And then the bans started. And the bans started because that was the way for Silicon Valley to manipulate the discourse. And they banned the white nationalists. They banned the alt-right. They never banned people like Posobiec. They never banned like your basic bitch Trump supporters. They banned that radical element on the far right. And they're doing it all over again now. Trump, it was very liberal in the lead up to the election. It was, by liberal, I mean open. He wins the election. Now it appears there may be a crackdown on the far right. And, so all it takes is for a few people to lose their features. And then the message is clear: toe the line, lose your influence. And nobody wants to go back to Gab. As much as Andrew Torba was jacking off Trump and everybody was, gassing up Torba, nobody wants to be sentenced to another life sentence on Gab. We would rather die. Take it from someone who almost did recently. We would rather die. No, I'm kidding. That's too far. But nobody wants to be sentenced to 25 more years on Gab or being banned. It's worse than being dead for influencers. So now everybody's going to be a good boy and say, oh, no, we need the labor. We need to confront China. We need it for AI. It's only 10,000 here and there. It's only 1 million backlogged Indians in the system, blah, blah, blah. And I'll add one last thing, then I'm done. So people are saying this is a racist attack against this Indian guy. People called me a racist for being critical of Vance, for being married to an Indian. It's not, for me, it's not even necessarily a racist thing. When I look at Vance, I see a guy that married someone outside his race. That clearly means he does not care about his race. We do. You may not, but that's a contradiction. We care about that. That's why I'd like to marry a white person or a Mexican person, excuse me, but Vance doesn't care. That's why he married an immigrant or a daughter of immigrants from a completely different civilization. And whatever, I mean, that's their values. But the idea that we could expect Vance to be a reliable advocate for identity, for racial identity, for American identity, it just doesn't work, because you look at his Thanksgiving and it's all Indians. And, frankly, that's a different culture. That's a different group of people. And America is being transformed into a different group of people. If he's okay with his Thanksgiving being transformed in that way, he's probably okay with America being transformed in that way. He was never our guy. Elon was never our guy. And, whatever. I mean, Indians are fine. I have Indian friends. I had Indian friends in college. I'm a Christian. I love everybody. I'm not, unlike, ironically, some of these people like Kevin Deanna and Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin talks about turning like the so-called lesser races into biofuel. No one gives him shit. I wonder why. It's because he's Jewish. I'm Catholic. I believe everybody's fine. I just don't want them in my country. India has 1.5 billion Indians. Why does America need hundreds of, can't America exist too? India will always be there. America should always be there as well. For America to remain America, it can't keep bringing in so many immigrants. It's got to stop. And that's been my position for a long time. And that position is why I didn't vote for Trump. Nobody can be surprised. I told you so. But if you voted for him, you are a sucker. If you agree with me, but you voted for him, you are a fucking sucker. And you should have learned, because we've seen this movie 16, 18, 20, 22. We've seen, for as long as I've been voting, we have seen this movie, and it's playing out again in front of us. So that's my position on this whole thing. I expect apologies. I want apology forms. I'm sorry, Mr. Fuentes. I should have supported Groyper War too, because I was attacked, and I was, people really ridiculed me for that. It was tough to go against the crowd, but I'm really heroic like that. I had confidence in my convictions. I had the belief in myself to stand alone, the fortitude to do it in the long term, and it's paying off quicker than I thought it would. So I expect the apologies. You should be as humble in your humble apology as you were arrogant when you attacked me, as you were smug and aggressive when you attacked me. You should be pacified and submissive. That's what I expect from everybody that attacked me. And then we'll go forward in this. I'm kidding, but we'll go forward in this administration. We have to push back, although it is, ultimately, I think, impotent. We do have to raise awareness that Trump is destroying his legacy with this, and the legacy of MAGA. And, we can't let this become another bullshit administration where we do Middle East wars and infinity immigrants, but this time from Asia. We can't let that happen. So I'm going to fight against it. But that's all I have to say.
Yeah, Nick, let me just say too, I think that, when we get through this administration, there's going to be some things we have to look at. And I think bottom line, if we get 10 or 20%, maybe I was thinking 50% at the beginning. If we get 10 or 20%, no new wars, no troops overseas, better economy, stop illegal immigration, then that'll be better than Brat, I would say, just generally speaking. But on the main issues that you bring up, I want to kind of give you a couple things to chew on here, because there is a little bit of a historical reference when it comes to policy with this stuff. Similar things happened when our jobs were offshored and manufacturing and production was offshored. And a lot of the same arguments were made back then by the same elite class that got rich off of cheap labor overseas. But I don't think anybody would sit here now and argue that that benefited America. I think now we look at our hollowed out cities, our rusted out cities, our collapsed infrastructure, our poor people that can't find jobs for a living wage. That's the result of the same logic that's now being applied, in my opinion, to H-1B visas. And so I think that we do have a little bit of a kind of policy reference to say, okay, a lot of the same logic was used for that. A lot of the same influence was used for that. And it certainly did not benefit the American people. And so I think that we can kind of look at that. And then also, I think that this is a little more palpable way for people to understand kind of the wonky, really high political echelon breakdown that you just gave. It's all about follow the money. If they can hire whoever it is, whatever tech billionaire, Silicon Valley billionaire, if they can hire a foreign worker at half the price that works double the hours and doesn't get holidays or anything else, then of course they want to do that. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that now here we are talking about censorship on X when billions of dollars are potentially at stake over how we handle H-1B visas. So I think that that's kind of the palatable way to present this argument is to say, hey, do you think it's a coincidence that the very people that are going to benefit from the foreign labor, billions of dollars at stake, are the ones that are pushing for this policy that all of a sudden we look around and it looks like there's censorship for those that push back?
Well, and that's the thing, that, we need to get real free speech legislation implemented where it's simple. If you censor people based off of political views, then you are to be held liable for anything that's on your platform. Boom. That we need to get this type of
I don't know
legislation
if
in
it's
place
legislation. I don't think
if
it's
we can.
legislation necessarily. I mean, I think Nick has a great tort against X and against Elon in particular for allowing his docs to be up and for a gunman to go to his house and potentially kill him. So I think we need to just actually use the courts that we have, use the resources we have, and force the issue. And it's not like the left is going to protect X or protect Elon.
Well, that's the thing though, is that they like basically all of these, the way that the courts have interpreted the laws currently, it's like the social media companies have full
No, that's not
immunity for
true. That's
anything
not
that's
true. The
posted
the
on them
courts. I mean,
effectively.
look, I litigated the issue of Twitter suspending me back under the old regime and Huffington Post. I litigated it all the way up to California Supreme Court, and I litigated the other one all the way up to all through the federal courts. So look, there's lots of ways to use the courts to actually bring these issues out there and to expose what's going on. And of course, they have to sit for depositions. Those depositions can be damaging. I mean, look at the damage that Elon has done to his brand just on this Indian immigration issue. These people are not immune to public scrutiny, public investigations. As I've said before, there are several federal grand juries that are convened looking at Elon, particularly on the issue of the self-driving cars and how people have died because of the fraud that was associated with that.
Well,
Sure.
I did want to ask though for Nick specifically about the whole doxing situation with X, and I know I mentioned this in a couple of spaces and threads and all that, but there was a lot of posts that had 16 million views, 4 million views, tons of engagement. One of these had like 200,000 or so likes and impressions regarding an actual dox of his address, his phone number, and this was up for weeks and weeks on end. And people were reporting this and had no results of getting it taken down or anything like that. What can you tell us about X not bothering to enforce their TOS across the entire platform and having posts that had so many views and impressions remain up despite people trying to take that down, and how that contributed to what happened to, unfortunately, that with a crazy gunman? What do you guys, what can you tell us about the whole entire situation?
Yeah. So for people that don't know, I posted on the night of the election, I posted a tweet. I said, "Your body, my choice," which is a turn of phrase. The left, they tried to make the election about abortion, and that's their favorite thing to say: my body, my choice. So the night of the election, when it was clear Trump was winning, I said, well, actually, now it's your body, my choice, because Trump won. As you know, I didn't even vote for Trump. It's just a funny thing to say. It's a troll. The post blows up. It gets 100 million views, and people dox my house. They post a picture of my house with my address, my phone number, all that info. And they start saying, well, now we're going to go and kill you. They say, oh, you said your body, my choice. Well, now your body, our choice, because we're going to burn your house down. This is what they're saying. And so the post with my docs gets 16, on one post, gets 16 million views. And there were multiple posts that got that level of engagement. Like, imagine there's a lynch mob trying to kill you, and a picture of your house with your address and phone number goes up on Twitter and it gets 20 million views, and happens repeatedly. So this was going on for a month. Huge posts with tens of millions of impressions. with my full, people bitch about doxing a lot. Someone will be anonymous and then people say their name. I don't think people should be doxed like that. But this is a real dox. I'm a public figure. They posted my real physical location, and people do show up to my house. We're talking not one or two. We're talking like close to 100 people intermittently, one by one over the course of a month, harassing me in my house, throwing eggs in my house, walking through my backyard, yelling at me from the street, all kinds of stuff. And when that's going on, you can't talk about it because you don't want to encourage more of it. I don't live there anymore, so now I'm talking about it. Now, of course, this was enabled by the platforms, which did not remove the docs. The docs was able to be seen tens of millions of times, apparently before X's moderation team saw it. And many of them weren't even taken down until last week. And ultimately, this culminated last week in someone showing up to my house with a gun trying to kill me. Some kid, some 24-year-old kid, committed a triple homicide in Southern Illinois. I live in Chicago. This kid committed a triple homicide in Southern Illinois, killed his friend and the guy's sister and his mother, got in his car, drove 2.5 hours to my house, and stood outside my front door with a gun and a crossbow and like a can of gasoline to burn my house down, waiting for me to come outside. Thank God we called the police, and the police killed the guy. The police came, chased him out of my backyard. He goes running. He actually killed 2 dogs. He went and hid in a neighbor's house. The dogs, I think, came for him. He killed the dogs, jumped back in the alley. The cops killed him. Just horrifying, tragic situation, all the way around for the people he killed, for the dogs. Everyone was traumatized. Even for him, he's a young guy. I mean, who knows what he was going through. Horrible situation. And it was only after news of that broke that the doxes started to come down. And many of my friends who had reported the doxes, they got 50 notifications the day after that happened saying, "Oh, we removed the post that you reported." Because in rapid succession, boom, 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 we removed the post, remove the post. Because they reported it in November and it got taken down the day that the news broke that someone came to my house trying to kill me. And it's like, that's the kind of harm that can be done on the platform. And me, I'm a free speech guy, and I can even take a lot. I mean, throughout this whole thing, I haven't really been a baby. I haven't even really talked about it. But obviously, when people are coming to murder you, that needs to be mitigated. Like, for that reason, showing someone's location for the purpose of inciting retaliation, especially in the climate of the killing of the CEO in New York and the election and everything, what happened to Trump in July, it needs to be taken seriously. And it's shocking that, apparently no one on the moderation team intervened on that expeditiously. But now that Elon's reputation is being harmed because he went out on this issue, well, now we're going to shut everybody down immediately. I mean, like that. Check mark's gone, features gone. You are being deboosted.
Do you think that's because? Do you think that's because there's lots of Israelis that run the Twitter moderation system?
I'm sure. There's foreign agents that are, and you want to know how you know that? Because they banned phrases that are critical of Israel. There's been a war going on there for over a year now. And we know that the algorithm is being manipulated. And I know this firsthand. My friend Dan Bilzerian, he posted something that wasn't even, it wasn't vulgar. It wasn't, there's no hate speech. He said something about Israel, and the post had its visibility restricted. Like, you can't retweet it, like it, reply. He had a few of them like that. And of course, there are other people like, of course, Boz in the United Kingdom. He got censored during the UK riots, but it was mainly a lot of the anti-Israel stuff that got algorithmically deboosted. It got its visibility limited, or the accounts were suspended. There's even that, of course, that famous phrase that they chanted on the college campuses. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. They said that is now a call to genocide and can be banned on Twitter. Coincidentally, that's that same phrase that Elise Stefanik interrogated Claudine Gay over in Congress last year, like around this time last year. That's the same phrase that they chastised the MIT, UPenn, Columbia, and Harvard because pro-Palestine students were chanting it. And they said, oh, you let people say that, that's called a genocide. And it's like, well, I mean, it's sort of ambiguous. It's sort of subjective. And so, in other words, if that is being aggressively fought, but my docs is left up there for a long time, we can't know for certain because it's cloaked in secrecy. But I mean, you can surmise like which people would love to see me dead, but would also want to censor that phrase. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
we
yeah,
know.
I
I
think,
mean, we
and
know that Musk has a very close relationship with Netanyahu. We know that he described him as the unofficial president of the United States. Like I think it was right after October 7th. We know that there's all these IDF agents that work at X. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that there's also a close relationship between the Indians and the Israelis. So I think all of this is sort of a fair game question about whether or not X itself is a foreign controlled, foreign backed platform and that's harming Americans. And I'm very happy that you survived, Nick, but like this is a real issue and we need to address it as quickly as possible, I think.
I agree, and I'm exploring legal options about that, and I'm going to do my part in it. But you're right. I mean, it is obviously, and it's a tool of statecraft. Like we need to call X what it is. People think X is like a fun thing where you go and shit post and whatever. No, X is an influence tool, and it is a tool of
And
statecraft,
I
and it
noticed,
is.
by the way, that Adrian left the second you started making these arguments. And I think maybe it could be that, there's this question of litigation that might be brought against X and against Elon. And maybe we would discover in litigation that there have been concerted efforts to harm you on this platform. I mean, we have a prime minister of the state of Israel attacking you by name, a guy who's facing criminal indictment in his own country, a guy who's a war criminal according to like all these different courts in the world, and he's singling you out for like being hurt. It's like pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
so I mean, in terms of the timeline and X acting, you mentioned you reported things in November. Did you get any reports that said that these posts did not break TOS and were not a problem or anything like that?
I did quite a few of them. I reported a lot of death threats or glorification of violence. And I would say about 70% of them were actioned. But a lot of them, like the account didn't get removed. The post would be deleted, but the account didn't get removed. And some of them, there was no action at all. And it's like, the fact that nobody was on top of that, the fact that you don't have like, people that are aware of that issue and, on top of it, like I'm not reporting 1,000 things in isolation. Like it's clearly, that this is, there's like a lynch mob being formed. And so that's clearly just like negligence. And, Chuck is right. I mean, for Adrian to leave in the middle of that's a little conspicuous. He wanted to go at me in the beginning, didn't he? He wanted to
That
go
was
and
the
get his
idea.
point
Yeah, he
across
tried to
and
go
call the
at you, and he
Loomer.
tried to go at Laura. And look, I mean, it is Elon. Like I can't really get into how I know it's Elon, but it is Elon. So like, let's just be honest about it. And I think the reason he can't go at you and talk to you in a serious way is that this is a recorded space, right? People are archiving it, and I think if you were to sue, in Illinois, and I would advise that you do sue, and I'm happy to help you get an attorney and all of that, and help whatever way I can financially on it. I think we would discover that Elon has been using Twitter as his own kind of personal intelligence device, reading people's DMs. I mean, we got a sense of that too when he was talking about DMs with Laura and like that there's a transcript. It's like, how would he know there's a transcript? Like, how is he getting a transcript in real time of things being said on X? So I found that very curious when all that was going on. So anyway.
I just want to get a couple more questions answered from Nick, because I know it's been very crazy with the whole situation with X allowing doxes to be up and whatnot. When you see people talk about the H-1B visa program on X and have this dialogue, and then you have claims saying, oh well, these visa programs, they're great and all of that, and there should be millions and millions and millions of people coming in per year. With at least with what you saw in X so far, discussion on the H-1B visa, do you think that the pivot from the tech bro sector from we need more immigration and all that, is that going to be a resounding part of the next administration? Is it going to be mass legal immigration, more legal immigration, whether it be H-1B visas or agricultural visas? Like, how do you see immigration play in the next 4 years of the Trump administration?
Well, let me answer this, and then I gotta go because it's getting late. But I think it remains to be seen how Trump responds to this, because a lot of his people, a lot of his like online influencers are really pushing back against this. The whole thing kind of seems like fake, though, if I'm being honest. I don't know how sincere a lot of these people are, but we need to see how, if he weighs in on this controversy, or when or how. I imagine he probably won't anytime soon. He's been quiet, although it is the holidays. But I think it's going to be pro legal immigration. I think that he did change his tune. And I think that, look, not for nothing, but if you want to deport all these people, if you want to get inflation down and all this other stuff, like, he does need the economy to be supercharged. And if they can convince him that the way to do that is to bring in all this cheap labor for their tech companies, so we could beat China, I think he's going to go with that. I think he's going to go with them rather than the rest of us, because he's been, even back then, he said, we're going to open up a big, beautiful door. So I think it's, it remains to be seen, and it'll be interesting to see what his what he'll say about immigration after this, this contentious kind of debate on Twitter between one faction and the other, between the donors and this, like, what people are calling the base. So I don't know how he'll respond to all this, but I think he's going to come down on the side of the tech people. I think he's going to bring them in. I think they're going to convince them that this is how, he's going to have a great legacy. So, but that's all I got for you. So I think I'm going to head out.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you again, Nick, so much for hopping up here and talking. And it's very unfortunate what happened with X and allowing this docs and all that to be up for so long. Praying for you, of course, and Merry Christmas to you as well. Thanks for hopping up here.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you all. Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas, Nick. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So I am probably wrap the space up because my space is completely crashed. I have not been able to do anything in the past hour plus or couple hours, unfortunately. So I'm probably wrap the space up here. And I think we got most of the points regarding X and conservative organization about how, there's mass problems with X and that there's been mass flaggings of Lord Loomer's account and all of our badges are completely gone. Hopefully Elon can fix it as soon as possible. Hopefully that the badges get back as fast as possible. Loomer's problem with the account gets resolved and all of that. And we're able to have a conversation about X and free speech and the algorithm and the problems that, come with that whole situation. So thankfully this space didn't crash too much, at least for you guys. I know it did with Conservative OG, but I think that this be around.
Yeah, and everybody, if you take anything away from this tonight, know that the battle of good and evil is around us at all times, and you need to pray to Jesus Christ and get saved. Get it right with Jesus as soon as possible. Thank you guys for all the support. We're going to try to get everything back up and running again, God willing. But Chief, thanks for hosting.
Yep, thanks guys for tuning in. And again, unfortunately, space kept crashing, so hopefully this doesn't happen again. But thank you guys again, and have a good night.